Thanks very much for joining me. I'm back finally. So before we get into the actual videos that are going into production shortly, let me show you what the 2023 workshop looks like and some different storage solutions and some space saving stuff that I've decided to go with. So come on and let me show you what we've got. So as you would have seen from coming in, this is the view that I previously had. However, that wall is now completely different. We've also got some different wood storage going on and different bits and bobs. Let me just take you around it. Now, once again, this is a 3.5 by 4.5 meter garage, I think. The landlord actually owns the other side of this garage where he stores stuff. So you'll see a door there, but I can't go into that side, annoyingly, because it would be brilliant to have that much extra space. It would double what I've got here. But I think I've made the best of the space that I've got. So let me go around the room. I'll show you what we've got, and then I'll tell you what differences I've made to the middle, which I think is going to be super helpful. Okay, so what I've got going on here is the new lumber rack. I'll show you some close-ups while I'm talking about this as well, just to let you know a little bit more about what's going on. But this is all my hardwood and a couple of bits of birch ply as well. And yeah, this is now my sort of internal storage, because I had a whole bunch of woods that were kind of, some was in a thing that I made going on here, like a lumber rack kind of affair. Some of it was in a drawer. A lot of it was under a flip-top table. And now it's all in one place, all right there, and it means that I can see exactly what I've got. And to be honest, didn't realize I had this much. Now they're mostly small pieces, but nonetheless, that's still a reasonable amount of lumber. Directly opposite that lumber storage, we've got some ladders hanging up there. These are the long pieces of lumber that I've got. They are mostly things like, I think I've got some Iroko there, but I've also got a few other kind of, standardized bits of sort of darker hardwoods, like the one beginning with M that I can never remember. And they're quite brittle, but, they'll come in useful for certain projects. I put a bunch around my cabinet for my table saw, which I've still got to do a video on, but it just kind of really brought things out. Anyway, let me tell you what's next to the lumber storage. Okay, so this is the little router cabinet I made ages ago, and this is getting changed. I'm taking this all apart, and I'm going to include a router inside my table saw cabinet to help save some more space. But currently what's in there is a little Bosch AE something or other, 1100 or something, with a little lift under it as well. And it's done a fine job, but I think I can get rid of this and save even more space. Okay, next to the router table, we've got this, which is a baby changing table. I got it for free. I think it was on Marketplace. It's a solid piece of kit. There's a kind of a handy sort of tray style top, which is obviously the nappy change. And yes, it stops your baby falling out of it, but it also stops my tools falling out of it. And seeing as I'm so absolutely clumsy, you guarantee they will be. Now, not fully organized quite yet, but in the top drawer here, I've got a bunch of sort of dodgy hand tools, and I also made this little tray that I can slide around in there. That has a bunch of stuff just that I want to have access to a lot of the time. But yeah, there's everything from hammers to old chisels to dodgy screwdrivers to various saws and all sorts going on in that one. In the one underneath there, not really a whole lot at the moment. I've got a couple of pipe clamps. I've got some plug sockets because I will be installing plug sockets around here. And I've got my Scotch-Brite pads in this packet. And then underneath at the bottom is just more crap storage of stuff. Again, not quite organized yet, but under here, this is just a bit of wood that I put a couple of legs on and attached it to the top of that. And it's just another sort of storage cubby hole kind of affair where my Titan thickness jointer is under there at the moment. Hopefully, I'll be getting rid of that. And at some point, I will get a thicknesser, a benchtop thicknesser instead. I do have a scroll saw there, which I've got to fix as well. But let me show you what's going on up here. Okay, so above my head, you can see my clamp storage, which I've kind of always had. I've just relocated a few of the clamps. What we've got here is this is generally a lot of my glues and all that sort of stuff. We've obviously got some coffee mate there. I haven't got the coffee machine back out here quite yet, which is devastating. So I've still got to find a place for that. But yeah, a bunch of different glues there and all sorts of bits and bobs that are going to keep me going. I've got some foam brushes there, some random stuff there, and I've got a pocket hole jig that I mounted to a bit of MDF going on right there. Now this, I'm pretty happy about. So as I said, there's all finishes and what have you going on there. But up the top here, you'll see that we've got these three little storage containers. Now these were actually drawers at one point in time. And these drawers were actually thin drawers that I had inside my original cabinet for my table saw. But my wife came up with the genius idea of just cutting out this little hole piece going on here. So I've got two that are open and one that's closed, and they hold all my finishes and all sorts of stuff that we're going to get to play with over the coming year. Now this area is fairly similar to what it was, although there has been a little bit of a move around. I have got just behind me a flip top cabinet, which is just also currently holding some random stuff and charging things and what have you. But that used to be over in this kind of space over here. And I made a bunch of cabinets that two of them are behind there now, and one of them is there. That's where I've got my pneumatic NV900, I believe it's called, with my cyclone separator thingamajig, just a cheapie off Amazon. And then obviously the Flow Plast push to fit dust collection system, which I've got running all the way along this wall at the moment. So currently I've got the bandsaw, this Elu bandsaw, which is fantastic. I love it. That is connected up to the dust collection. And I have a spare hose that I can use to do all sorts of stuff. And I've got the dust collection going up and over and coming over the top of my workbench as well. But that's where we're at. These just a dodgy, again, cheap marketplace cabinet. But because it was quite low, it meant that I've got this at a nice working height. This used to be a lot higher. So that's great. I've also got my pillar drill going on right here. Now then, this is the StartRite Mercury Mark II, which I think is a fantastic pillar drill. I cleaned it all up before Christmas, but it's all got rusty again over the bad weather. So I've got to give it another clean, but it's working. It's doing a beast of a job. I do need to sort of do some work on the bearings, I think, but otherwise it does a fantastic job. I haven't got dust collection set up for this yet. That's why I've got loads of dust collection bits and bobs kind of all floating around the floor. I've got a magnet poking off that with my, I actually put a long, them strip magnets that you put tools on. I put that on a stick so I can pick up metal things that I drop fairly easily, and also sort through piles of sawdust and stuff, just as a bit of a tip for you if you're a little bit wobbly like I am. If you sweep up your sawdust and things, and you think, oh, I might have some nails or screws or whatever in there, then get one of these magnetic bars that you put tools on the wall, stick it onto a bit of wood. Once you've swept up, run that bad boy over it, and that'll pick up loads of stuff you didn't see when you were sweeping up. So that makes sure that you don't get metal in your dust collection, which is a good thing. I did also throw together this little cabinet, but if you've been watching my Instagram, you may know that I built it, and I was a bit tired at the time, and I confused the length or the height with the depth. So it ended up much shorter than it needed to be. So I had to make a bottom section for it and stick it on the biggest set of wheels that I could find. But yeah, it's all fine now. Okay, so this is the biggest change to the workshop other than the move around of everything else. And that's because my roof was falling in recently, and that had to be replaced. And so when the builder did that, the landlord also wanted him to make a brick wall under there for extra strengthening. So once that had finished, I managed to find some OSB on Facebook Marketplace, which was an absolute bargain. And I've stuck that over the top of the brickwork, which has now meant that I can put not overly heavy stuff, so hand tools, onto this wall. Now, it also means that it's an additional filming background rather than the one that you've been used to up to this point on the channel. And I've got to say, I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. I think it's looking pretty damn sweet. In front of that wall is the cabinet I made for these drawers. Again, these drawers were another Facebook Marketplace find for not very much money at all. I think that was about 20 quid as well. And I am almost organized for these. I've got like drill bits and router bits and hinges and handles and all sorts of stuff in the right drawers. And I've almost got labels on them all as well. So this is the view that I have been using on the back of the backdrop for a lot of videos. And that's just because I put these French cleats up thinking it was just a nice and easy way of storing stuff. And it still is. I've got my Smurdex, sanding discs going on right here, which I think are absolutely superb. I think they're better than the 3Ms personally, but that's just my decision so far. I've got my power drills. I've got a few drill bits and what have you. I've got my Menza sander going on right there, router going on there, a clock that I made up there, some ox tools, chisels they sent me ages ago, and that is my PPE cabinet, which I've got to put those things inside. Under here, we do have what I was talking about earlier on with one of the magnetic strips with just a few of the more regularly used hand tools. And I've got a fire extinguisher, which I've had in here for ages, not necessarily knowing where it is though, but I figured that's probably a good thing to get that out. On the opposite side of the wall that you have seen in the past, that's where I've got my Clark Woodworker sort of low pressure, high volume dust collector, which I need to connect up to my table saw. However, I need to make a Y-piece fitting because I will be putting my my router into the table saw cabinet, and I need to do I'll be making a kind of a box that two pipes can go in, so one for the router and one for the table saw, and like a big old blast gate kind of affair that will come out to the Clark Woodworker low pressure, high volume jobby. But yeah, on top of that, I've just got some Bauer tracks. I was having a play around with them yesterday. And yeah, otherwise everything here is pretty much the same, apart from over here is the flip table that I made, which is just kind of storage at the minute. And that leads us to where we're at going on right now. Now, previously, I had this set a little bit differently, in as much as what I had done is behind this table saw was a little bit further towards the doors where you're behind the camera. And I had this bench going kind of lengthways this way. And then I had another bench by the side of it that was also going that length. Now that took up a lot of space in here, and I didn't often use all of that space. So what I'm going to do is I will make a cover that goes over everything at some point. So if I want to, I can just, cover stuff up. I've got a little bit of scrap wood that I use to look after the top of my table saw, because over the bad weather and over Christmas, that got really crunchy and horrible. But yeah, that's that. But it's over here that I will be putting the router once I move it from over there to over here. And I've got an old Elu router, which is a 1/2-inch jobby, which I will be popping into this, I believe. Now, this isn't the best router base or plate for it, to be honest with you, but can't afford a proper posh one. And I'm also going to have to make a lift for it as well, because I'm not going to use the same principles I've used over there. I want access at the top of the table without having to go into it and messing about. So that's going to be a high priority. That will be a project in the not too distant future, hopefully on the channel. Now, I've still got to do a video on this cabinet that I made and just show you the basics of what I made. It certainly won't be a tutorial. And also the use of this wonderful fence rail that I was kindly gifted. But yeah, I will tell you all about that at a later date. But the reason I've not done anything thus far is because the finish that I've used, I wanted to really kind of test out, because it's a new finish that I've tried out. And I've got to say, it's doing a bang up job. I've noticed that I've got some paint on it over there, so we'll see how that cleans up and sorts the finish. One of the things in here that I am most proud of, though, is the wall behind me. I think it looks really, really good, and it was really easy to do. I did put some pictures on Instagram of me using the Sigmund laser that I will be reviewing very, very soon to help me put up the French cleats, but I didn't make a video about it because it's literally just cutting a 45-degree slice off the top of some lengths of wood and then just weighing them straight up on a wall and having another 45-degree going on something behind it. So making a French cleat like that, really easy, but you can move it anywhere. And if you get bored, you can change things around. Yesterday, for instance, I managed to get I bought myself a new dovetail saw. That's a smaller one of the brass back saws you can see up the top there. And with that, I threw together a little holder for it, stuck a French cleat on it, and bosh, it's on the wall in less than an hour. Now, at the top of there, I have put something where a lot of people might not do, I guess, but this shows failure and also development. This shows my dovetails that I was having to go at a while ago and having various forms of success. But over the course of 5 days, they did get significantly better. Over on the side there, there's just a little bit of artwork going on there that I threw together. I thought that looked kind of cool. And then this is another little one that I think is great fun. And it's just using an old cupboard door and sort of sanding bits of it and then putting some old tools in there and making it looking a little bit arty. One other thing, though, I do have in here, this is my dovetail drawer. So there is sort of marking gauges, my little hacksaw. I've got some really, really cheap chisels that I'm going to review down there. They are just crazy cheap on Amazon, but I'm hoping they're going to be great for the softwood work, possibly not for the hardwood. Right here on the side of my workbench is the sharpening station, and I've quickly thrown that together. Once again, couple of hinges going on there. Then we've got a bit of wood, bosh, and that nice and solid sharpening station. Just got to figure out what I'm going to do with these two things. And then, yeah, that's all good and gravy. So all in all, I'm really happy with the way everything is set out. There are a few things that I would like to change. I would like to change this vise, although I did kind of bring it back to life again, and it's very, very usable. I would like one of the old school kind of just big, long, chunky, threaded vice screws that I can stick on there. I might also put an end vise on at some point in time. I was playing with a track saw kind of flippy uppy thing yesterday, so that might happen at some point as well, because I don't have a miter saw. I got rid of my miter saw because I just didn't use it very much. But there are a couple of instances, like when you're cutting down big lengths of stuff, where currently I now use a battery saw. But, you know, it might not always be the best way of doing that. I don't know. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, I would like to change this out. I would like to get a thicknesser as opposed to the Titan thickness planer jointer thingamajig, a bench top one, just because that would make my life a little bit easier. And if I want to joint wood, then I'm going to use the table saw to do that. And you'll see that in upcoming videos as well, I'm sure. But that's it. That's the 2023 workshop for the time being. I've got no plans to change anything quite yet. But, you know, there is obviously more tidying that needs to happen. I also need to make sure that I do use things like my dust collection more often, because I am a bit crap with doing that. So I need to pull my finger out and do that properly. But otherwise, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It's not really very much warmer, but it is back to working capabilities. I've got more space to move around. And, yeah, I think I'm utilizing the space better. If you've got any questions about anything I've shown you today, then please do let me know. And, I will try and break that down in a future video or answer them in the comments if I can. But no, otherwise, this is what we're going to be looking at for the time being. And yeah, thank you very much for sticking with the channel over the last couple of months since I was poorly and then the roof fell in. But we'll get back to making some content sharpish right about now. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you very, very soon.